Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Book of Sean. It's so good to see you tonight. Thank you for tuning in. I am so pleased and so honored that you are part of the conversation. Tonight's chapter is all about the will to finish. Tonight's chapter is about finishing what you start. And to help me talk about it is my dear brother, Clarence McNair. He is a branding executive. He's an author. He is someone who knows of what he speaks. He's here tonight, and I'm so privileged and honored to have him. Before I bring him into the conversation, a few things I want to talk to you about that's going on that I need to mention to you. You know, I always do headlines, some things that stick out in the news to me. And the first one is something that I think as African Americans, we need to be aware of. And it is this. Please understand that the coronavirus is running rampant in the Black community because of the underlying conditions of heart disease and cancer and asthma and diabetes. African Americans are being affected by this disease at alarming numbers. For example, 35% of the deaths nationally are African American. In the city of Chicago alone, 72% of the people who have from this disease, from this virus, are Black folks. We got to talk about this. We got to talk about this. We got to make sure that as we go through this, and especially when this is over, that we attend to our health. Why don't you make this time, while you're sequestered in the house, a time to get your health together, to eat right, to work out, to move your body, to walk, because this pandemic is exposing, as is the case whenever there's a war, whenever there's a national disaster, or there's a pandemic of a virus, it exposes that which is weak, vulnerable among us, and we happen to be that, not because we have to be, but in large part because we're not making good decisions about our health. I understand how poverty works. I understand the choices of poor people are depleted and they're not what they should be. We don't have access to the kind of healthy food that we should. I get that, I understand it. But even in the midst of it, we need to make better decisions. So listen, my brothers and my sisters, stay in the house, wash your hands, and use this opportunity this moment as an opportunity and a chance to work on yourself and to fix yourself. Well, I'm done with that. Let me do. So apparently, I found this to be very interesting. The Fulton County Solicitor General Keith Gamage has decided that he is going to expunge the criminal record of Martin Luther King Jr. Just let that sit in for a second. Isn't it ridiculous that Martin Luther King still has a damn criminal record? But yes, he has one. And Keith Gamage, the Solicitor General of Fulton County in Georgia, is going to expunge the record. Now, he should get a shout out for that. And by the way, he's expunging the nonviolent records of over 3,000 other people, which I think is something cool and important. But it just strikes me as so odd that this has to be done. And secondly, that it wasn't done a long time ago. Dr. King's been dead 50 years, and he still has a criminal record. You know, that makes me want to say something to everybody watching. Isn't it funny that this entire country is dependent upon people who drive buses, people who deliver food, people who take the products off the boat and put them on the truck, and the entire country is dependent upon people who work in hospitals, people who clean the hospital. But these are the very same people that some other people did not deserve to make $15 an hour. And now the whole country's dependent on them. Think about that when you go to sleep tonight. All right, I'm done. My man, Clarence McNair, is in the building. He's with us very tonight. Tonight, I want this conversation to inspire all of you that are watching to understand the secret science, what it takes to finish what you start. And there's a science to finish it. Trust me, I know. You know how many diets I've started? Welcome to the program, my dear brother, Clarence McNair. Clarence, what's up, man?
Hey, man. I'm just trying to finish this interview and get through us starting this interview, man. We got to make it past this interview with all of the technology, you know, going in and out and just adjusting to this new way of life.
Yeah, you know, your words ring true on a very important level, not the least of which happens to be we've all had to acclimate ourselves to new venues, new formats, and new platforms. and which
Yes.
requires that we've all had to learn something and stretch our mind.
Well, in my book, I talk about just readjusting to situations. And I think right now, whether we wanted to or not, we're actually being forced to, readjust our lives. Really, I think we're getting to the place of, focusing on what actually matters, focusing on the things that you actually really need in life.
Yeah, let's talk about, because I want to begin with the book. All right, the book.
Okay.
I want to begin the conversation, and I'll tell you why I want to begin with the book. Because let me tell you something, Clarence. Look at me, Clarence. Let me tell you something. You had me at the title. I was all yours. I was all yours at the title. The title got me. It's a great. Give it one more try. Let me tell you something, man. I don't know what angel, what vessel of divinity, what conjuring you went out in the backyard to do to come up with that title. But if I had a hat on, I'd give it to you. Best title I've heard from a book in a long time. Give it one more try.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where did it come from?
So I used to be signed to Motown Records. I was in an R&B group called Prophet Jones. And after we lost our deal in 2002, I started going through a lot of crazy situations. I started just so many ups and downs. And every single day in the back, I wanted to quit. And then I would sit down and I would just think about growing up. And I grew up in East Baltimore. I would think about my mother, how things wouldn't always go the way that she wanted them to go, but some kind of way she would never give up. And I was just really, really thinking about like all the times that I saw my mother just figure it out. And when I was in my darkest times, I used to just really talk to myself. And I was like, you got to keep going. I got to get this one more try. And then I would try it, and then that would fall apart. And then I would try something else, and then that would fall apart. And then I would just say, okay, let's try it again. All right, I gotta give it one more try. And I would just keep trying. I would have 1,000 things just blow up in my face. And so basically the title came from a real life experience of, talking to myself. When obstacles was coming in front of me and coming my way, I just kept making a decision that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to give it one more try. Even if it doesn't work, or even if I have to go through this a million times, I'm just going to just try one more time. And that's how the book was created.
I love that. I love that. First of all, what I love about it is the mama aspect, because there were many times in my own life when I thought about just walking away from something. I thought about that lady who had given her everything for me to have a chance to fail.
Yes.
And
yes.
And there was no way in hell I was going to dishonor her sacrifice by not trying the best I could. And what's powerful about what you just said, and it got in my spirit. The scripture said, "Just man falls 7 times, but he gets back up again." And I think what's powerful about that is let's do it this way. Talk to me about people and what happens in a person when they give up too soon.
Well, in my book, Give It One More Try, I say you have to have bricks on your back sometimes to tap into your supernatural self. What happens is when you give up, you deprive yourself from reaching your highest potential within yourself. Meaning that along my journey, had I given up, I would have never known my inner strength. Because when you're going through ups and downs, you get to know who you really are. When you're going through those challenges, when you're going through those letdowns and setbacks, you start to understand who you are. Most people, as soon as obstacles and challenges come, they start pulling back. When you start facing these challenges head on, you start to learn and discover more and more about your inner strength.
You know what's powerful about that? If you're not careful, giving up will become a lifestyle, and it will transfer into areas of your life that you can't afford to give up in.
No, see, the reality is failure and letdowns is nothing but time for you to learn. It's if you haven't been through anything, you have no wisdom. You have no reference points. You have nothing to talk about. So not
Right.
only do you become self-defeated, you deprive yourself of the experience and gaining knowledge and wisdom from going through the storm. So it's so many things that happens to a person when they don't make a decision to give it one more try. When you give up.
You know, I think resilience is a principle that has great value for what we're going through right now.
Yes.
And I understand your book. It's really about espousing the secret to living a resilient kind of life, being able to take it, absorb it, reconfigure it, give the world back a different kind of energy. Considering the fact that we're all locked in the house, or safe in the house, I should say, and everything has come to a different sort of way of being. Talk to the audience about the significance of manifesting the principle of resilience.
Well, it's so crazy because I actually came up with "Give It One More Try" maybe 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I came up with that title, and in my book, I talk about perspectives. I talk about having a new, profound respect for the things around you. Right now, we're in the house. To a lot of people, it's like,
Right.
okay, I can't come outside. A lot of people are becoming depressed. A lot of people are going through a lot of anxiety. A lot of people are having a lot of panic. A lot of people are doing a lot of worrying. A lot of people are doing a lot of complaining. A lot of people are just frustrated. But one thing that I've learned from going through so many different things in my life, before the coronavirus, I learned that what got me through the situation was starting to change my perspective on how I seen the situation that I was in. Just think about this. You actually have a house. This is the first time for a long time that people have had an opportunity to I call it like trade places with people who live on restrictions every day. There are people who their normal lives is the fear of catching something because they naturally have a weakened immune system. There are people who every single day live on tons of restrictions. They live on lack. They can't go out to a restaurant because they don't have the finances. They can't take a vacation and travel
That's
to another city
rich.
because they don't have the finances. In their house, they can't go to the market because the money is they don't have enough. So there are people who live in a state of fear, a state of anxiety, a state of the unknown, restrictions every single day. And I think the entire world is getting to trade places and experience life on the other side of people who live with restrictions every day. So this moment right here to me is great. It's not to say that I don't have my moments where it's like, when is this going to be over? But I'm
Right.
focused on the positive things. I have a roof over my head. I have food
Facts.
in the refrigerator. I
More
can turn the
facts.
heat on and off. I have
Three
Wi-Fi.
facts.
I have a television. And I'm not in prison. I'm in my house. And I'm with my family. And I get to cook all day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And I even picked up a skill. I learned how to make bread pudding. So, yes, we're used to saying, okay, cool. It's sunny outside. Let's go downtown and grab some food. Let's go to let's go to the club. Let's do this. Let's do that. When you start to pay attention to what's actually going on, you realize that there are some blessings and some great things in the middle of this storm. If you would just pay
Yeah.
attention
Yeah.
and change
Yeah.
how you see this situation and see it for what it really is. Sometimes we can become a
Yeah.
little bit too emotional and not
Yeah.
logical enough.
Clarence, I'm going to say this to you. I think that if you're not sick yourself, and if you don't know and or you're not related to someone who happens to be sick, then right now the moment is requiring of you a serious inconvenience.
Yes.
It's not oppression.
Yes.
You know,
Very.
and I think everything you just said has so much wisdom in it because it is critical from my perspective that people walk out of this understanding that finally the majority of us get to experience what some of us have had to live with for a long time. A
Yes.
restricted life, a life of boundaries, a life always determined by somebody else's margin.
Yes. Hey, brother. If we disconnect it right now, we've done enough on this interview. That's facts. That's facts. That was one of my in my book. I talked about uh, just transitioning. That was one of the things that I did to help me get through when I was going through anxiety and different things like that. I started to find a value in everything. I started to find a value in just taking a walk. I started to find the value in going to the supermarket. I started to find the value in all of the little things. And man, so many things started to change in my life. It just was mind blowing.
I love that. I love that. And I think so tell me if I'm wrong. My sense of the book is you wrote it because you had lived a certain kind of substantive experience that included moments of disappointment and personal tragedy, but it blessed you to have something to say to the world for people who find themselves in that predicament about what it means to live another day.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly why I wrote the book. When in the middle of the storm, like, I started wondering, like, okay, there's no reason because I feel like so many people take so many great stories to the grave. I
So,
feel
so
like,
Clarence, stop for a second. Stop for a second. Let's
okay,
talk about the storm, all right? Because my
okay,
thing is, I always want my viewers to understand that when I bring somebody on the show, it's not because they have something to say, it's because they lived something long enough to have something to say.
okay.
So let's talk about the storm. Let's go into what happened that facilitated, what I might call, what Du Bois calls the dark night of the soul.
Well, it started young. I grew up in
Mm.
East Baltimore. My father was in prison for half of my life, over 20 years, and I had my mother, and we were trying to get into the music business. It was our way out. I grew up in a family in a neighborhood that was crime and drugs and violence and different things going on in East Baltimore, and no one in my family ever had like big success. So when we finally did get the record deal, it was just like, life, like, wow, somebody actually made it. Maybe we don't have
And,
to
and, and
struggle.
you're talking about the group Prophet Jones, right?
Yes, yep, Prophet Jones.
Yeah, I want
So
everybody to know who we're talking about.
yes. So it was the first time. It's like, okay, all the stress is gone. Somebody made it. Somebody's going to become famous. Somebody going to make it big. No more bills, no more struggling. So, I get out there, we doing everything. We traveling, doing movie soundtracks with Jamie Foxx and all these crazy things. And then eventually everything comes to an end. I
Why?
Well, we lost our deal after 9/11. Everything got weird, and just everything got weird. Our album came out in 2001, September 16th. So everything started getting weird, and then we started having problems in the group, and Motown didn't want to renew the contract. So we actually were dropped from Motown.
So let me ask you this. So the music industry sort of changed after 9/11. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. It's
In what ways did it change? Because this is all new information to me. I don't know anything about this.
well, at that same time, I don't know if you remember, in the 90s, we weren't in the technology age. When 2000 came, we started going digital.
Yeah.
And in 2001, everything froze after 9/11. The world was in a shock. So our
Mm.
album had came out a week after the towers were hit.
Mm.
So everything just froze. And then on top of that, the hip hop scene was starting to come up from the South. New York City at that time, I don't know if you remember, but New York had a hip hop drought. and all of the music was coming out of the South. So
Yeah, yeah,
technology was digital was coming in. You had 9/11, and you had Southern hip hop music that was wiping out R&B. The R&B had slowed down, and you had Master P, Cash Money, and Lil Wayne, and all those guys. They were coming up, and then the South
yeah.
just started creeping in, and then the guy group started disappearing. So
So what did that do to the internal dynamics of your group?
Okay, so it broke us. We weren't prepared.
Mm,
We weren't prepared. Whenever you have big hopes and big dreams, especially, I actually think every artist that signs a deal should get a psychologist the first day they sign their contract. Especially if you're not used to having money, if you're not used to having that kind of lifestyle. To go from zero to a 100,000, like not 0 to 10, but 0 to 100,000, and then you
yeah.
lose that, and you come falling down. And then on top of that, when you fall, you didn't save any money. You spent all of your advances. You spent all of your show money. Everything just stopped. So here you go. You're coming back home to reality. And you
Mm,
got a video on television. Your music is playing. So you had all of these things happening, and you just kind of lost. And so what ended up happening was, when I came back, uh, maybe a few years later, I started suffering from extreme anxiety. I didn't even know that I was having those issues because I never heard of anxiety. But come to find
mm,
out, my group wasn't the start of anxiety. I had it in me from when I was young, and everything
mm.
that with my father going to prison, it just took one moment to bring those to bring everything
Yeah,
back up
yeah,
out of me. So
yeah.
what happened was, when that moment happened, everything from my childhood, from my life up to that point, started affecting me, and it all just started hitting me to the point where I, my confidence was gone. Um,
Mm,
I didn't have any interest in anything. I felt worthless. I felt like I let
mm.
my family down. I felt like it was the end of the world for me, and I just felt like I let everybody down. And I started to go
Mm.
through so many things internally. I started to have heart palpitations. I'm in and out of the emergency room. I didn't have finances. I owed the IRS money. It was pure hell, man. And I tried to, a lot of people didn't understand me because they didn't know how bad I was hurting, because I was covering it up. I wasn't being honest with
Yeah,
myself,
yeah.
and I was lying. I
And
was I
that's
was
and
lying to myself.
and that's what people do. We dissimulate. We present to the world what we think the world needs from us and needs us to
Yes,
be.
and it
And I
and
think
in the
what's
midst
powerful
of
about what you're saying, I think what's powerful about what you're saying is that, as long as the music's going on, you can avoid and run from your issue. But when the
yes,
music,
yes, the only sound you hear is your mind.
that's good.
That's the only sound you hear, and that's the only voice you hear is your mind when the music stops. And
And
what?
Clarence, stop for a second. How many people you think are afraid of that moment of encounter?
Most people. I would
Most
think I
people.
would think 80% of America. I would think 80% of, let's speak about America right now. I think 80% of America is afraid of that. Actually, I say 90%. Most
I
people,
agree.
most people, most of the time when they come face to face with tragedy, usually is through death. And that's what losing
Mm,
something that you put your entire heart into feels like. Feels like you
mm,
experience death. And in the process
mm.
of that, not only are you feeling hurt people hurt other people. And you start to drag people into your hurt. And it's a
Right.
vicious cycle.
How did you do that?
I did that by searching for relief in people. I started
Mm,
trying to find love and find love through people. And I
mm,
ended up, you know, getting in relationships where I wasn't ready. It didn't take time to work on myself. I was jumping right into things, and I didn't work on myself. And I tell people, even in my book, uh, Give It One More Try, I talk about taking a moment to work on yourself. Sometimes in life you need to just be still. You need to stop. You need to slow down. You don't fall into, hey, I need to hurry up and get in a relationship. I need to hurry up and meet somebody, because what's going to happen is you're going to go into that relationship with all of those unfinished, unresolved issues that you have, and you're going to be a
yeah.
burden to someone else. And
You know,
that's
it's interesting because I really want you to take us into, and we're going to come out on the other side, trust me. But take us into how close were you, literally, to giving up?
oh my goodness, man. So at one point I didn't have an appetite. I had to pray to have
Mm,
an appetite. I had
wow.
I had no appetite, and I used to come around my family, and I would hide stuff from my family. They didn't know how bad I was suffering. I wouldn't say nothing. And there were days where I would walk down the street. I would just be in a bad place, and you know, I would just question everything. And then in the back
Mm,
of my mind, I just would constantly think about my family. I would think about my mother and my younger sister, who had some complications when she was born and overcame all of that. So,
mm,
in the midst of me going through what I was going through, man, I had examples of people who been through the storm and didn't give up. But I not
mm,
had those examples, and that was instilled into me from early on. Where I come from, you don't give up. No matter how hard it is. If people where I come from, they it was rough. I have aunts who, when I was young, we used to go down to projects, and people couldn't control their own heat, you know. And me and my cousin, we would just make bologna sandwiches on the stove down Flag Projects. It was a serious project in Baltimore, and
You-
people
but you know
people
what,
in
Clarence?
Houston out
I'm
there.
gonna let me jump in and say this, because I think what you're saying is true in every sense. But I think it has to be seen in the context of what's going on now. Here's what I mean
Yeah,
by that. Um, Anxiety and suicide are skyrocketing among African American millennials who did
yes,
not grow up the way that we grew up, and they did not necessarily see the people that we saw. But the reality is, they are dealing with their own pressures, right? Their own
yes.
triggers and trauma. Can you say a word to them, right? Beyond what it is we normally say to each other about, you come from a people that didn't give up. And you tell me if I'm wrong. When you're in the grips of it, right?
Yes.
When you're in the grips of it, that's not gonna help you.
No. No.
And what I
What
want
I
to know is, take me back, and I'm almost done, but I'm gonna change gears in a second. But take me into that moment, and what was it beyond what you saw, beyond the legacy examples? What was it that either was said in your spirit, or however you got it? What got in there?
I had faith. It was
Yeah.
it was my faith, and
Mm,
it took a lot of prayer. So young people, young millennials, old, everyone out there, I just, at some point you have to dig into a place deeper than yourself.
mm,
And I digged into a place deeper than myself. And it was
mm,
my faith at my darkest moment that held me up because of what it is that I grew up on and what I believe. And
So
for
here's my
those
question.
who,
What do you believe?
uh, I believe that all things are in control. God controls all things. I believe that everything is in his hand. And I believe that, it's at some point, as we can see now, we have no control over anything. We're totally,
Right.
everybody's out of control. Nobody has control over anything. It's out of our hands, especially the everyday people. And at that point, I just had to throw my hands up and I had to let go. And I think
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
what
That's
what would
it.
help a lot of people is sometimes you just need to let go and stop trying to
Surrender.
control outcomes. When you let go, you allow life to happen. In my book, I say, leave life alone, let it be. Because
Mm.
one of the biggest problems when you talk about suicide and you talk about all of these things that's happening, we have a big control problem. Whether we want to admit it or not, everybody wants to be in control of their life. They want to be in control of the
Yeah.
outcome. And sometimes
Right.
in life, you get through a place in a moment where you just have to sit still and just slow down and just say, hey, you know what? I've done everything that I can do. It's not in my control. When you
Well,
try
I've
to
done
do
everything I
anything,
can do, and that's all I can do.
that's all
So
you can
let
do.
me ask you this. Were you suicidal?
No, I can't say I was suicidal. No, I wasn't. When I say that I wanted to give up, this is what I mean when I say give up. It is different levels of giving up. To some people, giving up is homeless, sleeping on the streets.
Mm.
To some people, giving up is just staying in a house and not being productive. To some people, giving up means you don't do what you used to do anymore. So there's different kinds of people see giving up in many different ways. My giving up was I refuse to not be the person that God intended me to be. And I felt in my heart
Mm.
that there was so much more inside of me than just saying, the heck with it. I'm just going to quit and just give up on give up on my motivation, my talent, my
Yeah. Your
skill,
destiny.
everything that's been instilled in me. I'm not going to just give it up and just say, okay, I quit. I'm just going to blend in with everybody else. I never was able to blend
Yeah.
in with everybody else. So for me to
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
up was it's a different type of give up. So that
Yeah.
was
No,
my
I
give
hear you.
up. You understand?
I know. I hear. I think that's rich. I think it's important that people understand that giving up looks different. It feels different. There's different connotations for every life.
Yes.
I think that's actually very rich. It's rich for this conversation because I can be doing something that you've given up on, and vice versa, and it looks to you or that I'm being successful, when in truth I've given up.
Yes. Hey, dude.
You
I
know.
hope this interview
So
stays online because this is for this is
so
serious.
so let me ask you this, because I this I every time I talk to somebody who has the kind of experience that you have with the kind of wisdom that you bring, I'm a firm believer that anybody will love you on the mountain, but it
Yes.
takes a real generous and great soul to love you in the valley. And what I want to know is who loved you when you were in the valley.
Wow. I had family. I had my family
Who?
my well, I had my sister. At the time, I my I had some of my friends one of my good friends that I was in a group with, who always was there for me when I called. His name actually is Stacy Ladisall, brother Jerome Ladisall. He was the one that discovered me actually, from Baltimore.
Mm,
And I used to call him all the time. And I had I reached out to a couple of psychologists and counselors and just a
mm,
few people that I came up with, and also one of my cousins. Man, I got to give him some love. He's his name is Nathaniel. When I was in, just he never gave up on me, man. No matter what, He always believed in me. He never, ever gave up on me. You know, when I was at my lowest,
Ooh, I love
he
that.
still believed in me. When I didn't have anything, he still believed in me. When everybody had turned their back on me, he still believed in me. When people would lie on my name, he still believed in me. He stood by my side. So, you know, I got to show my cousin some love, because when everything fell apart in my life, he would call me and say, man, you're going to make it. You can make it. He was always supportive and always proud. And another friend of mine, Fairman Bonds, he's in the military, and he would always just call me and just, you know, tell me that, hey, man, I believe in you. So sometimes in the storm, people will say, okay, who were the people who believed in you? But I say, who were the people proud? And another friend of mine, Fairman Bonds, he's in the military, and he would always just call me and just, you know, tell me that, hey, man, I believe in you. So sometimes in the storm, people will say, okay, who were the people who believed in you? But I say,
we always have to have people who can believe in us when we can't believe in ourselves. And I'm a firm believer. That your life and my life have not been defined by the people who left. It has rather been defined by the people who loved us enough to stay.
yes.
And there's a person in particular that I want to ask you about. I want to give you some time to talk about her. Talk to me about your mom and the role that she played in putting the pieces together.
Oh, man. I don't know if we have enough time. We would have to be on the phone for a month to talk about my mother. You know, she's as I get older, I start to understand my mother. My mom raised, you know, when I talk about her strength, I get speechless, because my mother set the tone. My mother was a fighter. She was a go-getter. At early on in life, she invested into me. She invested into my career. She always believed that
How?
she financially invested, and we didn't have any money. She made sacrifices. She was maxing out Capital One credit cards and selling dinners and just putting on events. And we were living in one of the roughest parts of Baltimore. You lived in East or West Baltimore. And she just was always positive all the time. No matter what happened, she always was positive and pushing. And because of my mother, that's how I actually got in the entertainment business. And you know, just what she's taught me over the years is my mother don't break. Sometimes she's a little bit too strong, but my mother's a strong person, and I saw her go through what I went through.
Clarence, let me stop you for a second, all right? Now I want you to receive this, right? Because I used to say the same thing about my mother until I discovered that they do break. They do break. What happens is they break in such a way that they are not destroyed by the breaking.
No.
What's amazing about mothers, you know, let's universalize it. Black women across the board, right?
Yes.
Is that they have this ability to be shaken but not stirred. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
They're bent, but they're not all the way broken.
Yes.
So I'm just stopping you to suggest that it's even more extraordinary to consider the fact that in her own way, in her own private life you did not have access to, she had moments of breaking, but she was able to fight through what she felt to make sure that you had a chance to live out your destiny.
100%.
I'm about to throw my shoe at the computer.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Isn't that amazing? You know,
yes.
Let me ask you this. What role did therapy play in picking up the pieces and putting your life back together?
Okay, so check this out. At about 3:00 in the morning in 2006, I think it was 2006, at about 3:00 in the morning, I was watching television, and there was this lady named Lucinda Bassett, Midwest Center for Stress and Anxiety, that came on television. And I didn't know about the anxiety thing. And she started talking about the symptoms, and that's when I knew that I had anxiety. And from that moment on, I started to get help. First, I did the whole, self-treatment thing. I took all of the vitamins and, changing my diet. I did all of that stuff. And yes, it helped internally, but I had to get my mind together. And a lot of times, you hear everybody right now preaching, okay, yeah, we're home eating donuts and cookies. Yeah, we know that. Let's keep it real.
I'm not.
But for the most part, a lot of people talk about diet. And yes, diet is important. So diet is very, 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 very important. You should eat healthy, but you should work on your mind just as much. And when I was at my worst end, and I reached out and I was able to get therapy, I had my first psychologist, and that was part of my healing process. So it was a mixture of eating healthy. It was a mixture of going to a therapist and just getting in my spirituality. So the psychologist, man, I can't even explain to you the kind of help that was, because not only did it help me with that one situation, it helped me in all areas of my life.
Yeah, and that's the value and the beauty of therapy. That's why you gotta have it. If you need it, you got it. I was as you were talking, I was thinking about what I said about your mom. And let me tell you another reason why what I just said about your mom I think is important. Because as sons, if we don't acknowledge, I'll speak for myself. If I can't acknowledge that my mom does break, then when I come to love another woman, right? Yes. On a peer level, on an intimate level, then I will wonder, when she does manifest breaking and heartbreak, I'll wonder, why don't you have the strength that my mother had? When in truth, mama and girlfriend are made of the same stock. It's just that our mothers knew how to hide certain things from us, and the people we are living and loving with, they are in our faces constantly and manifested. It puts, to me, it puts an unfair expectation on Black women, daughters, girlfriends, and wives, if we believe that our mothers don't break.
Yes, man, that's powerful. Yes, that's very, very true. Those are some of the things that I actually, I like to keep it real. Keeping it real and straightforward has been something that set me free. And unfortunately, those are some of the behaviors that I've actually dealt with, just expecting women to be like my mother, and that's not the case. And I gotta throw my hands up, because I'm guilty of that. And that was a work in progress, and just realizing that who my mother was is not who anybody else can be, and I shouldn't expect them to be like that.
Right. No, that's rich. And I stand with you and say, I am, as much as you are, a work in progress on many levels, and so I affirm that. So let me change gears. All right, I got to do this. So I'm going to give you things people say. All right. So I'm going to give you statements one at a time. These are the things people say, and I want you, Clarence McNair, who's written a book on about not giving up. Right. Give it one more try. I want you to give me a one-sentence reply. There you go. A one-sentence reply to the things people say. Are you with me so far?
Let's rock and roll.
There you go. I like a man with courage. All right, let's go. Put the book down. We already got it up on the screen. All right, ready? These are the things people say. Give me your 15-second reply to this. Ready? Here's the first thing people say. This is too hard for me.
That's all in your mind. That's less than 15 seconds. Look, people say this is too hard.
I love it.
Most of the time, it's all in your mind.
All right, here's the next one. Ready? I would do it, but I don't have any support.
Most people say that, but that's just an excuse to not operate at your full capacity.
Here's the next one. I would do it, but I don't have enough money.
That's, I would tell that person, big things start little. You have to start and respect whether you have a dollar, a nickel, a quarter. Russell Simmons started Def Jam in a dorm room. If you got to start from where you are and take steps. Big things start little. You have to get started.
That's good. Okay, here's the next one. Nobody understands.
Most people won't understand, and no one is obligated to understand. What I would
that's good.
What I would say is, people have their perspective on you, and you have an understanding on you. Meaning that instead of worrying about people understanding, continue to work on yourself and improve yourself, and eventually maybe people may not understand, but they'll see change.
Okay, here's the next one. I'm afraid to fail.
Everyone has had a moment to be afraid to fail. I can't say that I was never not afraid to fail. However, there's really no such thing as failing. Failing is actually, the more you fail, the more you learn. I would say the more failures, the more you know, the more experience, the more wisdom you gain from failures. I failed 1,000,000 times. That's why I could write a book, because I had 1,000,000 things that didn't work out for me.
Okay, I'm going to jump in on this one and say, if someone said to me, I'm afraid to fail, I would say to them, okay, but remember this, all success is failure as soon as it succeeds.
Yes.
All right, I got some more. Stay with me, Clarence. I got 3 more. You ready?
Yes.
I don't know what my purpose is.
I would tell them, most of the time, none of us do. But if something brings you joy and other people get joy from it, usually that's an indication that you're walking in your purpose. Anything that comes natural, that you feel not just a self-fulfillment, but other people gain something from whatever it is that you do, usually that indicates that's what your purpose is.
All right, here's the last one with this little section. I hear this all the time from people. I know this, I've heard this 1 billion times. People often say, I wish I could start over.
I would say life is about chapters. Some chapters aren't as pretty as other chapters. Every time you turn that page to a new chapter, you actually are starting over, but you're further along the journey with new wisdom, new knowledge, and new experience. So
that's
every
rich.
day, every chapter is a fresh new start, because you gain something from all of those mistakes and experiences and things that you went through.
Okay, that's it. That's the soundbite today. To someone who says, I wish I could start over, the wisdom that I just heard you say is you actually are starting over.
Yes.
If you were here, I would slap you with this card. That's how good that was. I mean, right up on that hat, I would slap you with this card.
Hey man, the crazy part is some people get stuck in a certain chapter of their life and they can never get past that. They don't never get past chapter 1. They get stuck, So
let me ask you this, because I got 3 minutes left. All right.
Okay.
And I want to ask you about branding, because you are, or you continue to be, I suppose, a branding executive. You're someone who knows. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So you know branding, and I was going to ask you how you got into it, but I have a much more interesting question than that. All right, because I don't want the history of it. What I want to know is this: can you look at somebody and tell what their brand should be?
Actually, yes. Yes, I can.
Really?
Yes, and I can also look at a situation and know how to maximize a situation that's going to enhance your brand and give you the best return as it relates to brand exposure. Yes.
That's amazing. Is that how do you do that? Like how what okay, look at me and what should my brand be?
You're amazing.
Because I'm fresh.
uh you know, you remind me of if I could give you a brand, I would say you would remind me of and this is going to be very, like, I got to go left field for a minute. You remind me of the men's section in Nordstrom's, where the guys that work in there with the suits on and they selling the Ferragamos and real kind of cool and a lot of humor, but super, you know, little have the ability to be dapper, because I know you dress down right now, but I know you wear a sports jacket a lot of times. And am I right?
I hate wearing jackets. I'm more likely to wear a cardigan.
Really? But
Yes.
your brand to me would be someone that's just really laid back but aggressive, and really,
Yeah.
really, how does that sound? Really laid back but aggressive, but also a not too loud brand, just kind of like just like a medium brand in terms. If I was to dress you, I'm not a stylist, but if I was to dress your personality, I would.
I like that.
You heard that. So if I could see you in a 1989 vintage grandma coffee chair with a cup of coffee. Look, with a cup of coffee, some fly glasses on.
Okay, I'm done with you. I'm done. I am done. And when I hit you on Instagram, expect the shade, Clarence, because it's coming.
Hey, look, even though that was
89 grandma easy chair.
even though that was a serious question, I gotta be honest, man. I had to have some humor, man. We need some jokes right now. I mean, it's like we in the house.
I'm gonna need a drink after this interview is over. Hey man, listen, I gotta go. I'm over time. Clarence, thank you for coming on, my brother.
Make sure you guys go to Amazon and Amazon, Target.com, Barnes and Nobles, Walmart.com. Get the book. You follow me on @TheRealKatieMcNair on Instagram.
Okay, Clarence, stop interrupting my outro.
Okay. But I thought you were gonna let me be the co-host.
Get Clarence's book. You can get it everywhere. It's a great title, great book. I will see you tomorrow. I want to thank you for tuning in, everybody. Wash your hands, be safe, be good to each other, and I love you.